Comics have always whispered that Tony's past was never as clean as his public image. Long before he became Iron Man, before the arc reactor defined his chest and guilt defined his soul, Tony had relationships that were dangerous in ways he didn't fully understand. Name keeps surfacing like a ghost that refuses to stay buried: Whitney Frost. She wasn't just a lover, she was a force. I think the reason Marvel never put her on screen is because her existence alone changes everything. Whitney operated at the intersection of underworld power, advanced technology, and political manipulation. She understood systems the way Tony understood machines. When they came together, it wasn't romance. It was combustion. And somewhere in that hidden chapter, their relationship crossed a line that couldn't be undone. I noticed that Marvel often hides its biggest truths inside omissions. If something isn't shown, it's usually because it's too powerful to reveal too early. Whitney Frost wasn't the kind of woman who made mistakes lightly. So when she realized she was pregnant with Tony Stark's child, fear wasn't her first emotion. Calculation was. At that point in time, Tony was drowning in enemies. Assassination attempts, corporate wars, and global surveillance followed him like a shadow. Anyone connected to him was a target, and a child would have been a liability the world would exploit without mercy. I think Whitney understood something Tony didn't yet. That Iron Man saves the world, but Tony Stark destroys everything close to him. So she vanished. She cut off her criminal networks, severed political alliances, and erased herself from every system that could trace her back to Stark Industries. Not even Tony knew. And that's the cruel irony. The man who built AI that could map the universe couldn't see the life growing because of him. That child was hidden not out of hate but protection. Then Endgame happens. Tony snaps. The universe survives. And I want you to imagine Whitney watching that moment, not as a fan, not as a citizen of Earth, but as the mother of Tony Stark's son. For the world, Tony died a hero. For her child, his father died a stranger. That's where the emotional fracture begins. I noticed that after Endgame, the MCU feels emptier, quieter, almost intentionally unstable. The original Avengers are gone or scattered. Steve Rogers disappears. Natasha Romanoff is dead. Thor leaves Earth behind. Bruce Banner fades into the background. Nick Fury vanishes into space. This is important, because in that silence, Whitney has no one to turn to. No Avenger to trust with the truth. No shield strong enough to protect her child. Fear finally catches up with calculation. And fear forces her to make the most dangerous decision of her life. Whitney doesn't just leave Earth. She leaves reality. And this is where things get truly unsettling. Earth 616, the main MCU timeline, has no Latveria. That absence isn't accidental. I think Latveria was never missing. It was unreachable. Whitney, much like Tony, was more than she appeared. She had knowledge, resources, and connections that extended beyond a single universe. Using technology that feels almost illegal to exist, she accesses multiversal travel. She doesn't escape to another city or country. She escapes to another Earth entirely. Earth 828, a world where Latveria exists. A nation where science and magic are taught side by side like two languages of the same truth. When I rewatched Fantastic Four, that empty Latverian chair suddenly made sense. A throne waiting for someone the universe wasn't ready to name. Her son grows up there. Not as Tony Stark's heir, but as a student of a world that never had Iron Man. This distinction matters, because genius without legacy becomes something sharper, more focused. In Latveria, knowledge isn't restricted. Magic isn't feared. Power isn't regulated by committees or courts. It's respected. And that child absorbs all of it. Science, sorcery, and sovereignty blend into his identity. He learns not how to save the world, but how to control it. And here's something I find chilling. Tony built suits to protect himself from fear. His son builds his mind to eliminate fear entirely. That difference alone tells you what kind of man he's becoming. At university, fate intervenes again. He meets Reed Richards. Two prodigies. Two egos. Two philosophies colliding. Reed believes knowledge should be shared. Tony's son believes knowledge should be mastered. Their friendship begins with admiration and slowly rots into competition. I noticed Marvel loves using failed experiments as birthplaces for villains, and this one is no exception. A single miscalculation during a high-energy experiment changes everything. The blast scars his body. Radiation burns into his cells. Time itself betrays him. His aging accelerates unnaturally, forcing his physical form to catch up with the weight of his intellect. In just a few years, he begins to resemble Tony Stark, not symbolically, but physically. Same sharp features, same haunted eyes. Except half his face is scarred, a permanent reminder that brilliance always demands payment. This is where identity fractures. Imagine growing up knowing your father saved a universe that never needed you. Imagine being told your entire life that Tony Stark was a hero while you inherit only his absence. Whitney eventually tells him the truth. Tony Stark was his father, the man who died for everyone, but never for him. I think that revelation is the moment something inside him breaks permanently. Because heroes abandon individuals for the greater good all the time. That's the unspoken rule of heroism. But what happens when you're the individual left behind? He doesn't cry. He doesn't rage. He studies. He observes patterns across realities. And he realizes something terrifying. Incursions are coming. Universes are collapsing into each other. And the Avengers? They're not ready. He sees what the Avengers never did. The multiverse doesn't need defenders anymore. It needs structure. It needs order. And for the first time, Tony Stark's son decides he won't repeat his father's mistake. He won't sacrifice himself for a broken system. He'll replace it. But to do that, he needs something only one universe ever perfected. Stark technology. And that realization sets his path toward Earth 616, toward the legacy of a man who never knew he had a son. This is where the story truly begins to darken, because what's coming isn't revenge. It's correction. He doesn't arrive on Earth 616 like a conqueror. That's the detail I think most people will miss. When Tony Stark's son finally steps into the reality that birthed his father, he comes quietly, almost respectfully. I noticed this pattern in Marvel villains who believe they are right. They never announce themselves with explosions. They observe. He studies a world without Tony Stark and realizes something unsettling. It survived, but it didn't evolve. The Avengers are fractured, reactive, and nostalgic. They keep trying to protect a version of Earth that no longer exists. From his perspective, this world is a museum dedicated to past heroism. So instead of attacking, he infiltrates. Stark databases, old satellites, dormant protocols. He resurrects fragments of Tony's artificial intelligence, not to hear his voice, but to understand his mistakes. And in doing so, he learns that Tony always built solutions to human problems, while ignoring cosmic ones. That's where his son decides to go further than Iron Man ever did. The incursions he predicted begin exactly as his calculations warned. Universes colliding, realities tearing into each other like overlapping scars. The Avengers scramble, reacting the same way they always have, fighting symptoms instead of causes. This is where I think his mindset fully separates from Tony's. Iron Man believed in sacrifice as the ultimate answer. His son believes sacrifice is inefficiency. When one universe dies to save another, that's still failure. So he imagines something radical. A singular reality stitched together from the strongest fragments of dying worlds. A controlled environment where chaos cannot grow. A place where he alone decides which laws of physics survive. This idea isn't born from cruelty. It's born from observation. And that makes it terrifying. Because villains who believe they are saving existence don't see themselves as villains at all. To execute this plan, he needs more than intelligence. He needs legacy. Stark legacy. He breaks into forgotten vaults hidden beneath the ruins of old Avengers facilities. Arc reactor blueprints. Nanotech schematics. Experimental armor designs Tony never finished because he thought they went too far. Watching this unfold, I realized something haunting. Tony stopped himself because he feared becoming a god. His son has no such fear. He combined Stark technology with Latverian sorcery, fusing logic and mysticism into a single system. This is the birth of Iron Doom. Not Iron Man corrupted, but Iron Man completed. When he first activates the armor, it doesn't hum like Tony's suits. It whispers. Ancient spells woven into nanites respond like living organisms, and when he finally speaks, the line cuts deep. I am what Iron Man could never control. Not the suit. Himself. The Avengers finally notice him when it's already too late. Systems fail simultaneously across the planet. Defense grids shut down without alarms. Satellites realign into patterns that resemble sigils rather than circuits. I think this is Marvel's way of showing us that brute force is no longer the battlefield. Control is. When he reveals himself, he doesn't attack cities. He presents data. Projections of universal collapse. Probabilities showing Earth 616 dying in every scenario where the Avengers remain in charge. He offers a choice, not an ultimatum. Let him build the solution or watch everything burn. This moment mirrors Tony standing before the world and declaring himself Iron Man. Except this time, the declaration isn't about identity. It's about authority. And that's when the Fantastic Four enter the equation. In the MCU, the Fantastic Four arrive in a timeline where Tony Stark never existed. That absence defines them. Reed Richards never had Iron Man as a benchmark, never competed with him, never felt overshadowed. So when Reed meets Iron Doom, he doesn't see Tony's shadow. He sees a warning. Their past rivalry from Earth 828 ignites instantly. Reed recognizes the same intellect, the same hunger, but twisted by pain and isolation. Their conversations aren't fights, they're philosophical wars. Reed believes the multiverse should be allowed to resolve itself naturally, even if that means loss. Iron Doom believes nature is inefficient and cruel. I notice Marvel frames these debates like mirror reflections. Two geniuses staring at the same problem, choosing opposite sins. Reed chooses humility. Doom chooses certainty. Battleworld is constructed not through destruction, but convergence. Fragments of collapsing realities pulled together like continental plates. Cities from dead Earths. Heroes who failed in their timelines. Villains who won. All forced into a single reality governed by Doom's rules. When he crowns himself God Emperor Doom, it isn't arrogance. It's responsibility, at least in his mind. Someone has to decide who survives. And if he doesn't, someone worse will. This is where Tony Stark's legacy reaches its darkest evolution. Iron Man saved a universe by dying. Dr. Doom saves existence by ruling. One act of selflessness versus a lifetime of control. And the universe itself doesn't immediately reject Doom. That's the scariest part. Battleworld works. Incursions stop. Chaos stabilizes. For the first time, survival doesn't feel fragile. But peace under a god isn't peace. It's silence. Heroes begin to realize that Doom's order strips them of choice. No mistakes allowed. No sacrifices permitted unless approved. I think this is where the emotional core hits hardest. Doom never learned to trust others because his father never trusted him enough to exist. Tony Stark died believing he fixed everything. His son lives knowing that heroes always leave messes behind. Their final confrontation isn't about fists or lasers. It's about legacy. Doom confronts the Avengers with a truth they can't deny. Every catastrophe they stopped was followed by a bigger one. Every victory escalated the next threat. He didn't break the cycle, he ended it. Reed Richards is the only one who truly understands what Doom has become. Not a villain, but a consequence. Reed tries to remind him of humanity, of choice, of freedom. Doom counters with statistics. Lives saved, universes preserved. He asks Reed how many worlds freedom is worth. There's no clean answer. And that's the point. Doom was never meant to be defeated easily. He's meant to be debated. Challenged morally, not just physically. And somewhere in that conflict, the ghost of Tony Stark looms larger than ever. Not as a man, but as an idea. The idea that power should serve people, not rule them. In the end, Doom stands alone atop Battleworld, victorious but incomplete. Because despite everything, he still carries Tony's flaw. He believes he alone can shoulder the burden. And that isolation becomes the crack in his armor. Not because he's wrong, but because no single being should decide the fate of existence. Iron Man saved the universe once. Dr. Doom preserves what remains. And the MCU shifts forever. From stories about heroes saving the day to questions about who deserves to shape tomorrow. If this theory shook the way you see Tony Stark's legacy, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more deep Marvel breakdowns.